More Americans lost their homes in 2010 than any year in history. Our third story tonight, why that record will be broken this year and why banks hope Congress will help them clean up their own mess. U.S. banks repossessed more than 1 million homes in 2010, up 14% from the year before and crossing the 1 million home threshold for the first time ever. All foreclosure filings, including loan default and home auctions, on top of actual repossessions, another record was broken. That total was 2.8 million, a 2% increase on foreclosure filings in 2009. Foreclosure tracking company RealtyTrack reporting the numbers, with company CEO James Sacasio saying total claims, quote, would have easily exceeded 3 million in 2010 had it not been for the fourth quarter drop in foreclosure activity. A drop in foreclosure activity at the end of the year. Well, that sounds positive until you realize it's because many banks were forced to put a temporary hold on foreclosure proceedings. You may remember last fall, mortgage companies were revealed to have rushed paperwork on thousands of foreclosures, sometimes falsifying documents and creating fraudulent loans. The so-called robo-signing scandal prompted a halt on foreclosures by several leaders in the final months of 2010. Once banks resume repossessions this year, RealtyTrack forecasts a 20% spike in 2011, creating a new peak for the housing crisis. What's worse, banks will be repossessing homes faster than they can sell them, creating a backlog of unsold housing units across America. Fewer houses sold means housing prices will stay down or possibly go lower. Fewer new homes also means fewer new jobs in the home construction industry. Coinciding with the release of these numbers today, JPMorgan Chase announced a huge profit surge in the final quarter of 2010. The country's #2 lender made $4.8 billion last quarter. Those gains would have been even higher were it not for the $1.5 billion the bank set aside for litigation related to, quote, mortgage-related matters. JPMorgan CEO Jamie Dimon downplayed the impact of the foreclosure crisis in October, back when the company stashed away $1 billion for pending litigation. But now with nearly $3 billion, it would be profit going towards the mortgage mess. Clearly, JPMorgan and other banks wish it would go away. Enter the centrist Washington think tank Third Way. Yesterday, Third Way released a policy memo entitled Fixing Foreclosure Gate, urging Congress to intervene. While the memo presents this as a solution to, quote, keep the housing market moving, it would help banks through the legal process at a rapid pace by giving homeowners less ability to fight against foreclosure. At least 6 individuals on Third Way's board of trustees have worked in executive positions at major investment banks. Is it uncivil to say this is totally corrupt? To help us sort through this is Mike Konzel, a fellow with the Roosevelt Institute. He writes on the economy at rorybaum.wordpress.com. Mike, thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
So I think we all understand that foreclosure is an awful thing for a family to go through. Does it pose macroeconomic problems for the recovery broadly? If I'm not getting foreclosed on, is it a problem for me?
Absolutely. It continues to decrease consumer spending, which means less jobs. All these homes that are being repossessed are going to kind of go into a phantom zone on the bank's balance sheet, so we won't really know when to start up housing again. There's going to be increased uncertainty in the sector. We're very likely to see another decrease in housing prices, which will leave people further underwater, and it devastates state and municipality budget sheets, which means that, they're going to lay off teachers to help cover for these losses.
So we've got this big problem. There are too many foreclosures. You have households deleveraging. Third Way has proposed one of the solutions. What do you think of this proposal of theirs?
Well, it's important to understand, it's great that they're actually trying to do something about this. For a long time, people were hoping that this problem would go away. Now, the central problem with their approach is that it leaves Wall Street still in the driver's seat. The way that they deal with foreclosure, something called the servicing industry or servicing debt, is completely unregulated. It has huge conflicts of interest where Wall Street profits when people go into foreclosures. Both investors and borrowers lose. It doesn't have the information, or it's too thin of a model to actually deal with a nationwide housing bubble, and they're still left in the driver's seat. It also puts on the sideline our bankruptcy courts. It doesn't expand their powers. In fact, it limits them. And our bankruptcy courts are one of our best institutions in the country, and an institution uniquely situated to handle foreclosures.
So that sounds like a gesture towards a solution. If what Third Way is talking about, and it's looking like the banks we know are going to be working on Capitol Hill to basically get bailed out of this situation through some kind of statutory means. What is the solution? What should we be doing to deal with this problem?
Well, it's very important to think of this as a bank bailout. Now, we go back to TARP, and you can find letters from people like Larry Summers saying, if you vote for TARP to continue the funding in 2009, this was the second wave of TARP, we'll make sure cram-down happens. Cram-down did not happen. And
what's cram-down? What's cram-down?
Sorry. Basically, there's a defect in our bankruptcy code which doesn't allow judges to modify primary debt. Now, if you had multiple homes, that would happen. Our bankruptcy courts are uniquely situated to handle these problems, and we have not had any change in our bankruptcy code to basically allow these judges to handle this. Instead, we're going to continue with the failed shadow servicing industry inside Wall Street. This is a major problem for our economy, and it's a major problem for our communities.